Okay, welcome everybody. Good morning. Bruchim Abayim. We'll have the discourse today to start a new mimer. We finished Kikasha Hashemayim HaChadasha V'Eretz Chadasha, the new earth and the new heaven. So today we'll begin a new mimer. Be the mimer called as Lehavin Inyan Ha'Brachos, to understand what berachos are, what blessings are. It's also in Torah Or Bereishis, page 11. The Maimer Kasha Hashemayim that we finished was the second Maimer in Torah Or, and this is a few Maimarim later, page 11, the first column all the way on the bottom. In the Hebrew is Dav Vav, column 1. Vav, column 1. You'll see on the bottom, Lehavin Inyan Ha'Brachos. This Maimer by the Balatanya, by the Alter Rebbe, was said Shabbos, Parshas Vayera, Tov Kuf Samach Daled. That would be 1803, and he said it at a wedding, at the Suda of a wedding of a man named Rabbi Alexander Sender Frumkin, who became a son-in-law of Rabbi Aaron Halevi Mistrashela. Rabbi Aaron Strashela, his name was Rabbi Aaron Halevi Horowitz, was one of the greatest students and Hasidim of the Alter Rebbe. At his son-in-law's wedding, Shabbos Vayera Tov Kuf Samach Daled, I guess it was the meal, probably Friday night or Shabbos day, of the meal of the Chasana. The Alter Rebbe said this Maimer. It's a Maimer on berachos, but he specifically focuses on some of the berachos that we say in the Sheva berachos. During a chuppah, during Sheva berachos. This is why he said it at the wedding. And it was put into Parshas Bereishis. The Tzemach Tzedek, who organized Torah and put it into Shabbos Bereishis, you'll also see clearly, because it speaks about the creation of Adam, which is in the berachos of Sheva berachos. So it's a Maimer from Tovkuf Samach Daled, 1803. So let's begin. Lehavin Inyan Ha'Brachos. Let me just, somebody very special dedicated today's class. So today's class is dedicated by Eli Friedler, in honor of his wonderful wife, Mina Friedler, who he says is a true Eishes Chaya. Thank you very much. La'arichis Yamim V'Shanim Tovos. Eishes Chaya Teres Baila, yeah. Thank you for your partnership and a lot of hatzlacha and bracha with everything Ad B'li Dai B'Tov Hadira V'Anigla. For you and your wife. B'Toch Klal Yisrael. Lehavin Inyan Ha'Brachos. So verstehen, to understand the whole Inyan of brachos, the Inyan of blessings. So he starts off with the obvious premise, and that is, in the Torah it doesn't say to make brachos, to make blessings. There's only one bracha that says clearly in Chumash, and that is berachos hamazon, grace after meals. V'chalta v'savato v'rachtos Hashem alekechem, Parshas Eikev, after you eat and you're satiated, you bless. According to some opinions, there's also Shem Hashem Ekra, Havo Goydel Elokeinu, berachos HaTorah, the blessing before Torah. There's a discussion about that. But clearly all the blessings that we make, for example, in the morning when we wake up, the berachos HaShachar, the blessings, of course, before we eat, all the blessings before mitzvahs, these blessings, as he's going to say, come later in Jewish history. It was the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, the men of the Great Assembly, the 120 sages who reestablished Yiddishkeit after the destruction of the first Bais Medrash. When they came back from the Babylonian Gullahs, they began to build the second Bais Medrash. There was the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah. Literally, Knesset HaGedolah means, the gathering, the great gathering, assembly of great sages. People like Ezra, Nehemiah, Mordechai, Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. The last one was Shimon HaTzadik, right? We say in Pirkei Avos, Shimon HaTzadik Haya Mishyore Knesset HaGedolah. He was from the leftovers and the last one surviving, and he was a Kohen Gadol for many years in the second Bais HaMikdash. So the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, who instituted so many things in Jewish life, for example, davening 3 times a day, Shachos, Mincha, Ma'ariv, and the text of Shemona Esrei, the basic text, they're the ones who also instituted the brachos. When? In the time of the second Bais HaMikdash. Aval Bizman Bayis Rishon, the Alter Rebbe says. But at the time of the first Bais HaMikdash, Lo Hayam Avarchim, there were no blessings. So Jewish life did not constitute of blessings. Again, there was the one blessing, berachos hamazon, after the meal, but all of the other blessings, they did not have. Even today, before Kriya Shema, we have 2 blessings. After Krishna, we have a blessing. Same is true by Ma'ariv. All the berachos. There's the berachos that we say in davening. There's the berachos that we do say before mitzvahs. You put on tefillin, you make a blessing. Before you light Shabbos candles, you make a blessing. Before you light Chanukah candles, you make a blessing. You separate challah, you make a blessing. You put up a mezuzah, you make a blessing. In the morning, all the berachos. You eat an apple or you drink a coffee, you also make a bracha before. All this did not exist in Bais Rishon. So that means you're talking about Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash 440 years after the Jewish people came into Eretz Yisrael. 480 years after they left Egypt, after Matan Torah. The first Beis HaMikdash stood for 410 years. It's good to know basic Jewish history. 410 years. So from Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's 480 years till they built the Beis HaMikdash. Because a few hundred years they were in Eretz Yisrael without a Beis HaMikdash. They just had a Mishkan, a sanctuary, in Shiloh, in Noiv, in Gilgal, in Shiloh, in Noiv, in Givain, but not a Beis HaMikdash, right? And David prepared the grounds for the Beis HaMikdash, and then it stood for 410 years until the Babylonians destroyed it and exiled the Jewish people. And then after 70 years, they come back and they rebuild the second Beis HaMikdash, and that's when the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah function. So you're talking about a period of 480 years from Yetzias Mitzrayim, plus another 410 years. So that's 890 years. Then you have Galus Bavel is another 70 years, so it's 960 years. And then they come back and build the Beis HaMikdash, and at some point they were Masakim Berachos, so you're dealing with a time span approximately 1,000 years. That's a long time. Right? All Jewish history from Matan Torah is a little more than 3,000 years. So even till today, it's a nice portion. It's the first third of Jewish history from Matan Torah. Matan Torah happened in 2448, so it's a little more than 3,300 years. So for the first 1,000 years, give or take a few years, there was no berachos. That's what he's saying. So for 1,000 years, there were no blessings. Afterwards, the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah instituted blessings. So Alter Rebbe says, Va'inyan, the Inyan is, Kihine, this is very special words he says now. Kihine, Kol Yisrael, Ma'minim b'nei Ma'minim. It's an expression in Gemara, Maseches Shabbos, Daf Tzadik Zayit. Moshe told the Jewish people, Moshe told Hashem, the Jewish people won't believe me, they won't trust me. Parshas Shmos. So the Gemara says, Hashem told them, you're choshed b'kshedim, you're suspecting innocent people, they're ma'minim b'nei ma'minim. The words weren't invented by Mordechai ben David. He has a song, no? Ma'minim. Anachnu ma'minim, b'nei ma'minim. Yeah. So it comes from this, from the Gemara in Shabbos. I think it's Tzadik Zayit. Kol Yisrael ma'minim, b'nei ma'minim. All the Jewish people are ma'minim. They have emunah, they have trust, they have faith, but they're b'nei ma'minim, they're children of ma'minim. But what does this mean? It means it's not just they're educated that way. Hashem told us to Moshe in the beginning of Jewish history. So this is, as he's going to say, this is in their DNA. It's in their fabric. Mashanilu chachmei hafilosofim v'hamechkarim lahavin b'sichlam. He teaches emunah here. Most people, often people teach emunah is like blind faith. You believe. You believe. Some people believe, some people don't believe. Why? Whatever. Kasha for Monsey. You believe your grandmother, he doesn't believe his grandmother. He had a sweet liked her knedlach and chicken soup. She gave him warm cinnamon buns and ragalach. Right? His childhood worked for him, and it's not bad. So he believes. Another person doesn't believe. So essentially, belief, as they say in English, blind faith or a leap of faith. But here he says it's completely different. The taich of ma'minim b'nei ma'minim is mashanilu chachmei hafilosofim ha'mechakrim lahavim b'sichlam. You know what nilu means? Hityafu. Yeah, exhausted. It comes from Chumash. It says v'nilu mitzrayim lishtas mayim in haya'ir in Parshas Shmos. The Mitzrim were too exhausted to drink water because it was blood. Everything turned into blood. They were meshuga. It overwhelmed them. It was too stressful. That's what v'nilu means. Leah is Melashon Ayefos, exhaustion. Yeah, we went into my mother on it. Mashanilu chachmei hafilosofim. The sages of philosophy, the great philosophers, v'hamechkarim, the great researchers, the investigators, were exhausted. Lahavim b'sichlam. What their mind drove them crazy to. Their mind drives them crazy to wrap their brain around realities that are very difficult. So it's nilu, you become exhausted. You know, the brain has a certain capacity of what fits into the brain, what doesn't fit into the brain. If it's too much, the brain gets exhausted. That's the word he uses. Masha nilu. They got exhausted and too stressed out to touch certain realities because it doesn't fit in to the intellectual structure. And for a philosopher, the word philosophy means, philo means love. Philo, Philadelphia, the city of love. Philo means love in Latin. And then the Safi is seichel. So philosophia is the love of intellect, the passion for intellect. The passion for intellect means there's a structure. Intellect can explain it, can visualize it, can define it. That's what intellect does. That's what it's good at, seichel. At some point it becomes exhausted. It's like it's not working. So what these philosophers and investigators got exhausted, Lehavin b'sichlam. Ki emunei l'mayla min hasaga v'aseichel. So this is what he's saying, Yisrael Mamin and Bnei Mamin, and what they couldn't deal with seichel, they have it b'derech emunah. What's b'derech emunah? What's the compliment? What that you believe? You don't even know if it's true. He says, no, you're talking about emunah that's higher than seichel. You have emunah that's lower than seichel. What says that emunah lower than seichel? Somebody doesn't want to think. If I'm intellectually lazy, I don't want to use my mind. I'm not interested. It's fine. I'm not, somebody once said he used to be an atheist, but he quit because they have no holidays. He needed holidays. He needed vacation. He needed... Yeah, they don't have herring. What's there to celebrate? What do you celebrate? You have emunah. There's a lot of stuff. Person doesn't want to think. You have emunah that's coming from, it's a weakness. It's inferior to seichel. A person is lazy, or you say a blind faith. Close your eyes and believe. What does it mean, blind faith? Blind means, the word blind means, it's not a compliment to be blind. It means I don't look, I don't see, I don't want to hear. Fine, I trust. You came from outside, you said it's snowing outside. It's snowing. If I look, I see it's not snowing. Who's looking? You don't have to look, close your eyes. That's why you have to be blind. That's not the pshat emunah. He says a pshat here emunah is l'mayla min haseichel. In other words, seichel takes a person to a certain point, and a very beautiful point, and many beautiful points. It could take you through landscapes, take you on beautiful tours and journeys into a lot of places. And then there's a point that it can't go anywhere, so they became exhausted. And that's where emunah begins. Emunah is l'mayla min haseichel. Nachmer, furthermore, va'afilu me'hasaga shebeshayrish nefesh elikiz b'Yisrael. Emunah is even deeper than the hasaga, than the comprehension capacity of the divine soul in the Jew. The mazlei chazi. Even in the divine soul itself, there's the hasaga, there's what it comprehends, with its seichel, chachma, bina, das. And then there's emunah, its faith, its trust, which is even deeper than that. The mazlei chazi, the Gemara says sometimes you don't feel, but the mazel sees. The mazel sees, says about Daniel in the Masechas Megillah. Why is this so the mazlei chazi, that the shayrish nefesh elikiz b'Yisrael, the source of the nefesh elikiz b'Yisrael, in its shayrish, which means the level of comprehension here is not just of what the person consciously understands, but even what the mazel sees. Mazel is like the source of the soul, the part that's not even consciously manifested. Why are you saying emunah is higher than the hasaga of the nefesh elikiz? He says, Sharei leis machshavet tfisame. Because no thought can grasp the ultimate reality of Hashem, the ultimate truth. No thought, even the holy thought. It's not just on even the holiest thought. The thought process and the thought structure can't be teifus. Can't be teifus, pure infinity, ain't safe. V'uram v'nisa l'mayla mimazalayu. So even the mazel of the nefesh elikiz, meaning the source of it, which its comprehension and awareness is so magnificently deeper and infinitely deeper than a person could comprehend down here. And we're talking not only the animal soul's cognitive ability, but the divine soul's cognitive abilities. Emunah is higher than this too. Yeah. V'hinei bizman ba'yisirishin hayu neshamas Yisrael b'mayla halyana. In the time of the first Bais HaMikdash, the souls of the Jewish people were in a very high state, and extremely, when we say high state, it means they were sensitive to a very deep frequency in life. So there was certain things they took for granted. The Ohr Ein Sof, the light of Ein Sof, was dwelling and manifested, Mizgala is manifested, revealed in their soul, that the Emunah was so revealed like a person viscerally, physically sees something. It's obvious. It's very powerful. It's very blatant. It's very palpable. When you see something, it's like a reality. It's very real. Gilu Zekilu. This also explains why Avodah Zarah, why Avodah Zarah, the idolatry was so rampant in the first Bais Hamikdash, not in the second Bais Hamikdash. You see that even great Jews, some of the great leaders and the kings, became entrenched in Avodah Zarah. No person greater than Yeravim ben Nevat, that the Gemara says about him in Masechah Sanhedrin, that all of the Talmidei Chachamim of the generation were like blades of grass relative to his height. It's like you compare a blade of grass to a cedar tree. Ke'erez Balavanan. So you can't even compare. That was everybody in the presence of Yeravim ben Nevat. And he's the one who resurrected Avodah Zarah in the Holy Land. And you had throughout the Bais Rishon, you had the Ovdei HaBaal, worshippers of the Baal. And the question is, what was the attraction of Avodah Zarah? The answer, one of the answers for this is because the Emunah was very powerful. Zelu Umazeh, Klippa and Kedusha always have to be a balance to each other. Al derech kol hagadol mechaveri yitzrei gadol. There was also a gili. There was a spiritual. The spiritual energy of the world was so real. You had to contend with it. Later in Bais Sheni, everything changes. He's going to explain. Once the second Bais Hamikdash came, the souls were already different. They weren't in the same gradation. That's when the Anshe Knesset HaGedela instituted the blessings. It wasn't stam, let's add something new to Jewish life. It was to fill a major void that existed. Why? To access the revelation of this emunah, that in the time of the Bais Hamikdash, the first one, it was organic. It was communicated by osmosis. It was just there. It was present. The first word of every blessing is baruch. The word beracha, blessing, is baruch. Baruch atah Hashem. That's how every bracha begins or ends. We'll soon see the different types of brachas. But it's called a bracha. What's the idea of bracha? So he says baruch v'nimshach. Baruch means, we say blessed, it's really to access something, to cause something to flow from one place where it's concealed to another place where it's revealed. The word baruch in Lashon Kodesh, we have in the Mishnah is hamavrich es hagefen, right? If you bend the vine, you have a vine, you take a branch, you want to continue it, so you bend it, you put it into the earth, and you want a new sapling to come out, right? So you're extending it. A bracha is extension. They have berachos, a pool. It's also an extension of water, from a well, from a source of water. We have in last week's Parsha, in Parshas Chayesada. Vayavrech es hagmalim. What's Eliezer? Vayavrech es hagmalim. What does it mean? Gmalim are very tall. If you ever took a camel ride, right? He brought them down to their knees. Birkayim, berach, kol berach l'chotichra. Every knee will kneel to you. What's the connection of bracha, hamavrich, brecha, vayavrech, and birkayim? It's all the same thing. Getting down on the knees, the camel coming down from a very lofty, sublime, high state into a much lower space. You can get onto the camel. The camel could drink from the trough. The camel could relax. Vayavrech, he brings it down to the knees. When a person is kneeling, they go down to a lower space. So the idea of bracha is lashon amshacha. Liyas baruch v'nimshach havaya ein tzayv baruch hu begili lamata. Baruch atah Hashem, that Yud Kei Vav Kei Ein Sof, the light of Ein Sof, should be able to still be accessed down here, manifested in our consciousness, in our world. That's what brachas are, in one word. So in the first Bais Hamikdash, they didn't need these brachas because this was the natural vocabulary. Now, what does this mean? Could I just to say one word about this? You see in Chumash and in the first Bais Hamikdash in Tanakh, the Tanakh goes through the first Bais Hamikdash. Esther is the end. The Gemara says Esther saves man nevuah. Esther was the end of the Nevuah, and Purim happened right before the second Bais HaMikdash. In the beginning of the second Bais HaMikdash, you still had Mordechai, Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi, a few Nevi'im, but the last prophet was Malachi, and as the Gemara says, that's when the era of prophecy ended. In the second Bais HaMikdash, you can have individual prophets here and there. The Rambam writes about Ezra HaNavi, and Tosfos is a mention about, you can have an individual, but as an era of prophecy, the era of Nevuah was over. Still had Ruach HaKodesh, but not Nevuah. So it's all connected to this. What is prophecy really? What is prophecy? The Gemara says, I think also Maseches Megillah, that there were, I mentioned this now, that the Gemara says in the time of the first Bais HaMikdash, there were Nevi'im Keflayim Kiyotzim Mitzrayim. Double of the Jews that were left Egypt. That means if 600,000 Jews left Egypt, so you're talking about double. So you're talking about 1.2 million prophets. And if the Gemara means not only the men between 20 and 60, but all the Jews who left Egypt, so then you're talking about a few billion, so that's much more. But the Gemara says we only know of 48 because the Chazal, because the Tanakh only wrote down Nevuah Shehusu Chaladoros, prophecies that were relevant for all generations. So individual prophets you can have in the hundreds of thousands or the millions, but it wasn't written down. We only have 48 Nevi'im that were written down. Like Yeshaya HaNavi, Yirmiyah HaNavi, Yecheskel, Amos, Tzvanya, Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi, Yoel, etc. Evadia. In addition, of course, to Masha and the early Nevi'im. Shmuel HaNavi, etc. Why was Nevuah so random? There were even schools of prophecy, right? It says when Shaul started to prophesy, there was like a new phrase, Hagam Shaul ben Nevi'im. Shaul is Eichen Nevi'im. They even had a name for the Nevi'im. It says in the Tanakh, they called them Meshugayim. It says they were called Meshugayim. Huh?
Our generation is like the generation of this. Millions of
Ach Shadara. Somebody once told me the difference between a mystic and a psychotic individual is not the message. They're saying the same thing. The mystic just knows who to tell it to. The mystic puts in an ad, he's coming to town, he charges everybody $4,000 for the weekend. They get a good, nice place, they give you healthy food, there's music, they bring in a couple of stuff there, and the psychotic guy gives everybody free information. Doesn't charge anybody, there's no retreats. The mystic person knows he has it's called good PR. Huh? So obviously it's said in humor, but it's not fully humor, there's a truth there. Because, people that we call Meshuggah, it just means they don't fit into the box that we create. What's the definition? Yeah. What's the definition of normal? That you fit into my structure. Exactly, it's a setting on the washing machine. Very good. Very good, a setting on the washing machine. So it's obviously a challenge, but the point is that there's sometimes very deep stuff that come out in deranged ways because they're not integrated. Why was Nevuah so rampant in the first Bais HaMikdash? Because that's what he says here. What does he say? What is Nevuah? What is prophecy? Prophecy is essentially that your antennas are very clear. And therefore they're transparent, they're translucent, they channel. Like, sometimes when you listen to the radio, you're turning the dial on the static. You don't have the keli to channel the airwaves and the messages that you should be able to hear it. So Nevuah just means picking up the divine presence that is present every single moment. But if my antennas are dirty or obstructed or plugged, so I don't even know what you're talking about. And that's why you see Moshe Rabbeinu and Chumash and the whole Tanakh, there's such an obsession and warning against idolatry. And everybody has a hard time today understanding. Moshe says, don't make pictures of God and don't worship statues. And when you come to Eretz Yisrael, you're going to see the tree that they worship and this stone that they worshipped and this Baal and this Asherah and this Baal Tzvain and all the Avodah Zarahs that we don't even know about. And it was strange Avodah Zarahs, the way they worshipped them. And they worshipped them with passion. And this was such an obsession, and the whole Tanakh, all the Nevi'ei Emes, all the true prophets are admonishing them against it. And essentially the Jewish people came from Egypt, where there was a lot of idolatry. In fact, the Mechilta says, by Kriyas Yamsuf, Midas Hadin told Hashem, Halalu Evdei Avodah Zarah, Halalu Evdei Avodah Zarah. They're all worshippers of idolatry. Why are you going to split the sea before them? So in many ways, to understand Judaism, I'm going to say this in a funny way, we have to understand Avodah Zarah. Because it came from there, and it was a negation. Whenever you're negating something, it's because it's very relevant.
Rambam says the whole Torah's purpose is to
Yeah. And that's why the Rambam says, in Moreh Nevuchim, that the whole purpose of Torah was to uproot Avodah, to deal with Avodah Zarah. Like what, and you would think it's not so relevant. You're negating. Not only that, the Rambam explains the reason for mitzvahs. He gives a reason for every single mitzvah, and enormous amounts of them is not like Avodah Zarah. Constantly, even karbonis and mashal not shavit, cutting the payas, the beard, like all these mitzvahs, the Rambam always sees a lot of them Avodah Zarah. The idea is, and this is part of what the Maimon is saying. What was the idea of Avodah Zarah? The idea of Avodah Zarah is that everything is God, and everything speaks, and everything has a message. The leaf that you see is alive. This one is worshiping the leaf, and this one is worshiping the tree, and this one is worshiping the rock, and this one is worshiping the mountain, this one is worshiping a fish, and this one calls the cow a holy cow, like the Hindus. And this one is worshiping, of course, the sun and the moon and the wind and the star, and this one is worshiping a body. Everybody is worshiping. What are they worshiping? God. Or the gods. But what's the idea behind it? The idea is the world is alive. It's spiritually alive. Even a mountain, it's alive, it's speaking, it has a soul, it has a consciousness. And therefore there could be a miscommunication. What's the mistake of it? The mistake of it is God's not God. Not all being manifested from one source that transcends all of them, but each one becomes a self-contained God, and they could compete with each other and contend with each other and fight with each other, but it's a living world. It's a spiritually vibrant life. It's not a physically dead world. Then came the Greeks, and they introduced the curse called philosophy. What happened with philosophy? God became dead. God became a concept. And Ad Hayom, that's what it is. God is a concept. And therefore Judaism, in a funny way, I heard. Yeah, they went to the other extreme. So they turned God into a concept. If you read Tanakh, God is not a concept. It's a verb. It's alive. It's like relating to a human being. Don't turn a person. It's like turning the worst thing in a marriage is you turn your wife into a concept. I mean, men do this all the time. You understand? It's a concept. It drives them more crazy than anything. It's a concept like on paper. What happens when you turn something into a concept? You kill it. It's dead. You could become a philosopher about it, but it's dead. That's what the Greeks did very, very well. You argue about it, you exist, you're an atheist, you're an agnostic, you're a believer, all these things, yeah? It's like if you're married, I'll ask you, are you a believer in your wife? Are you an agnostic? You're an atheist. Elie Wiesel once said, Jews love God or hate God. They don't know how to ignore him. You either love or you hate. Stop ignoring me. Huh? Yeah. It's real. The word emunah comes from the word imun. Emes ve'emunah. Right? It's real. Amen is Keil Melech. At the end of a bracha we say Amen. Keil Melech Nema. So in a funny way, I think I heard this on, there was an interview between Yaakov Kirsch and Eli Nash. So he said it, and I thought it was very interesting. He said that in an interesting way, Judaism was an outgrowth and a rebellion against Avodah Zarah. In other words, in many ways it has much more common denominator, so to speak, with Avodah Zarah than it has with Greek philosophy. I don't mean common denominator that it's the same chas v'shalom. I mean Avodah Zarah. The world is alive. God's, of course, every leaf speaks. Every banana speaks. Even the squirrel is a god. Even a rock. The Arizal says, right, that a rock has a soul. A rock has a soul. The Arizal says this. Yeah, the question is if it's God or it's godly, it's gods or one. Hashem Echad. But the idea that the world is alive and it speaks to you, and there's a visceral relationship, like it says in Tanya, V'hinei Hashem nitzav alav, v'maloich al aretz kveidei, v'mabet alav, v'voichin kloyes v'leiv, im oivdei karoi. That's the Lashon Tanya. You know it's from the Niggin Mistama, no? V'hinei Hashem nitzav alav. But it was the words in Tanya, Perek Memalev, Hine Hashem nitzav alav, Malach alaris kvedei, Mabit alav, Avoichin ko. It's like, it's real. Ayin royev, Oizen shemas. There's an energy, and the energy I need to contend with. Either I can love it or hate it, right? But you can't, it's alive, it's real. It's like a marriage. Right? The worst thing in a marriage is, stonewalling, gaslighting, make you believe you don't exist. Huh? Yeah, the mute. It's like you pick up your hands, you go to another room. That's the beginning of the end. Stonewalling. It's like a contempt that demonstrates the erosion of a relationship. I mean, those who know about this know about this. Like, stay in the conversation. You want to fight? You want to argue? Okay, let's argue, but stay present. You tell is what I'm saying. The Greeks, they took God and they turned him into a concept. And the Chayre, they made him infinite, because he's beyond. But what does it do? It's boom. It's like as a detachment. Even if you think he exists, he exists. That's not a relationship. He exists. That's not a relationship. A relationship is visceral. A relationship is somatic. A relationship is authentic. There's an electricity flowing in the body. You understand what I'm saying? It creates a detachment. Even if you agree it exists, it's like an emotional detachment. So Avodah Zarah and Bais Rishon was a competition to Amunah. Because the real Amunah of Ein Sof is a Gilui of Ein Sof. And as we'll see, that requires humility and bittul and surrender. And Avodah Zarah was a cheap substitute, a counterfeit substitute. But you had to deal with Amunah energy. That was the frequency. So either you find it in holiness or you'd find it in idolatry. But it had levels of ecstasy. They had all these, you'll forgive me, all these orgies around Avodah Zarah, all this craziness and insanity. They were intoxicated by it. Why were they so intoxicated by it? There was something they were feeding off. The Greeks said, first of all, relax. First of all, relax. The world is a dead place. We're going to talk about it. And it became philosophy. So Meled Avodah Zarah and Bais Rishon was a direct outgrowth from the depth of the Amunah. And therefore, in Bais Sheni there was no Avodah Zarah, but there was also no Amunah. So the berachos, the Alter Rebbe says, the berachos was Anshe Knesset HaGedolah attempting to bring in that experience into the Jewish life. Baruch Atah Hashem. That what in Bais Rishon you didn't even have to talk about became a conversation. And that was the conversation of berachos. In Bais Rishon they didn't have to talk about it. You understand? Huh? No, we'll soon see the nusach, but this was the concept why they instituted so many berachos. Yeah. Visceral Relationship, and there's an order here. Every bracha, what do you say? You drink coffee, you drink a cup of water. Baruch atah Hashem. So you said to access, Baruch, access Hashem. Elokeinu, our God. Melech ha'olam, the King of the universe. So first you speak about Hashem, Elokeinu, then Melech ha'olam. Shachas hagilu mitchila liyas havaya Elokeinu, hu gilu ein sof baruch hu b'neshamas Yisrael. There should be the revelation of Ein Sof where? In the Shamas Yisrael, in the souls of Yisrael. Liyas Elokeinu mamish b'bchinas bittul. That we could say it's Elokeinu, it's ours. Like you own it, so to speak. What's it yours? It's like, it's yours. It's yours. What it's yours is it's an insult. He says the answer is b'chinas bittul, l'fi shem pnimi yisraelamas. Because neshamas come from pnimi yisraelamas, meaning they're rooted, their frequency is from the core of the worlds, the inner core of the worlds. So therefore they could completely surrender in a state of bittul, nullification, to be aligned with the Ein Sof. So it's Elokeinu, it's mine. You would think, if you started Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avosseinu, Elokei, the God of the tissue box, and the God of the mic, and the God of the coffee. It's almost an insult, like you're reducing him. We say Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Really, you're reducing him to... True, yeah, he's the God of Avraham, he's the God of everything. it's almost it's mine zakt, it's mine. Elikenu, it's ours. What does it mean? Ours? What you have him wrapped around your hand, you have him wrapped around in your brain, in your soul, in your heart. So he says the pshat is since a neshama is from pnimiyas ha'olamas, so it's in a state of complete bittul the neshama. So therefore, it's a giluyed itself liyas elikenu mamish, that it's completely one with it. The angels are from the external worlds. Shalayim nemen, on them it says, Misham yiparid v'hayalar bar rashim. In Parshas Bereishis it says the river comes out of Eden to irrigate the garden, and from there it splits up into 4 different outlets. So this begins the world of the angels. So it's explained in Kabbalah, the 4 rivers represent the 4 camps of the Shechina. Machana, Michal, Chuli, you have the camp of Michal, the camp of Gavriel, the camp of Rafal, the camp of Uriel, and these are the 4 rivers. Misham Yipared, it begins of a split. Arba Rosh. V'zeu, Shamar Razal, this is the depth of what Chazal say, Brachos Dav Daled Amud Beis, Michal Ba'achas. The Gemara speaks over there about the Malachim, and it says that Michal Ba'achas. Michal Ba'achas means Malach Michal does his mission Ba'achas, with one pricha, with one flight. He takes one flight, Azoi, Ba'achas, and he gets it done. Gavriel B'shtayim. Gavriel is 2 flights. The bird flies once, takes a break, and then again. And then he says, Eliyahu, 4. Malach HaMavis, 8. Michal ba'achas, but Michal, Malach Michal, the Gemara speaks of the goddess of Malach Michal, ba'achas with one flight, takes off, boom, achieves his mission. So he says, what's the idea? V'loy amru eze shir al neshamas Yisrael. They never said a shir on neshamas Yisrael. The shir is Michal, Gavriel, Eliyahu, Malach HaMavis, different angels. How efficient their flight. There's no shir on neshamas Yisrael, on the souls. Lefi she'inyin, so why? Lefi she'inyin tisa shetasim esaylam lo shayich gabi neshamas klal sha'olam u'maloye ein teifes makam klal negdam. Mashenken legabi ha'malachim teifes olam ez makam. Ela shemechol daile b'tisa achas, Gavriel b'shtayim, ve'eliyo ba'arbim gufay shayadchil legashmi v'nepach. The idea of tisa flying through the world is not shayich by neshamas. Why? Because the whole world and everything in it is not teifes makam klal, doesn't occupy space. So the whole idea of ba'achas, it's a compliment for the angels, that the greatest Welt, the whole big world, they fly through it in a single moment of consciousness. The malach is from one end of the world to the other end of the world. That's if the world is teifes makam, if it occupies space. And now the question is 1 flight, 2 flights. You have to take 3 flights to get there. You have to take 4 flights. Man, if you take a boat, it's going to take a year, and this one needs 8 flights. He says, L'gabe de neshama, it comes from pnimiyas ha'olamas, which means it's rooted in the Ein Sof Mamish, that the whole world is not teifes makam b'chlal. It's from a completely different frequency that transcends space, time, matter. It's like one, so it's all like one spot. Because the neshama is a chelik elokam imal, so it's the Ein Sof, so it's rooted in creator, pre-creation, pre-time, space, matter. So you're not going to compliment the neshama. The neshama is ba'achas. Malach Michal, Gavriel is Achas Shtayim. Eliyahu is 4, because Eliyahu had a guf, right? He came out as a body, and then the guf had to be transformed. So therefore Eliyahu's limitation, Eliyahu is different. Because Eliyahu had to work with his guf. It's not like a regular Malach. Eliyahu went up in the fire, so that's the chiddush of Eliyahu, that he transformed his physical body. But he had to transform his physical body. So maybe Eliyahu is Ba'arba. But this is all a relationship with the span of the world, with the span of the universe. It's a big thing. Mechal ba'achas, mamach nishtap. But he says, L'gabe neshamas Yisrael. The whole thing it's not teifes makam thing. So that's why you always start, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu. V'achakach melech ha'olam. And then there's melech ha'olam. Elokeinu means is the way the neshama experiences the Ein Sof, and you can't expect that in the olam. In the olam you could talk about angels. An angel is chitzonius ha'olamas. What says chitzonius ha'olamas? The word is chitzonius. It's a very, very deep term. Chitzonius means the outer shell of the world. Pnimius ha'olamas means the core. The malach sees the world, he sees the chitzonius ha'olamas. Here, chitzonius ha'olamas is very spiritual. Doesn't mean chitzonius ha'olamas of Klippi. You're talking about malach Michal. Malach Michal is holy. but it's already an inyan of pirud. There's a world. The world is a manifestation of divine energy. But the neshamas is from pnimiyus ha'elamus, where the whole world is not taifas makom, because it's like subsumed in Ein Sof. It's like a little spot. Like we spoke, the little speck of dust. The gargil chardal, right? You did another mimer about if you look at Earth and the expanse of the universe, 92 billion light years, it's not even a mustard seed. You wouldn't be able to see it. If you look at the universe from a few billion miles, you can barely see it. If you go further, you stop seeing it. So now you're going to say, oh, you could fly through that thing. What thing? You understand? Even a few billion miles away from Earth, the whole Earth, what's the name of the book? A pale blue dot. A pale blue dot. They took a picture a few billion miles from the Earth. The spaceship took a picture, a spacecraft. So you could barely see it. Right? Now, Carl Sagan, the astronomer. But this is only a few billion miles. That's not a lot. I mean, it's a lot for me, but it's for us, but it's not a lot relatively. Yeah. Not even 1 light year. So it's like, and even there, it's universe. Even there, to say, you crossed over from there to there, it's like a speck of dust. Like you say, I'm so powerful. I could jump over a speck of dust. Wow, you should win the Olympics. You should go do the marathon tomorrow. Really, you could jump over a speck of dust. But that's at least there's a speck. Once you go 92 billion light years, you won't even know where it is. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So you can't even talk about that. And this is all within a limited world. 92 billion light years, it's pretty big, but you're talking all in Gvul. So that's what he's saying, Lagabe Neshama. You have to understand spiritually, Lagabe Neshama is Yisrael. The Gemara doesn't even say a shir, because the ganze Welt is nicht teufes makom. That's Elokeinu. But then there's Melech HaOlam. Melech HaOlam is the consciousness of the universe. Shala Olam hu gilui malchusi is barach bilvad she'ein melech b'layam. On the world, there's the gilui of malchus, only malchus, because there's no king without a nation. In other words, to have a melech, you need an am, you need a people, which is otherness, which is an entity called a nation. And that's the olam, the world olam from the world helam. So that's the baruch ato Hashem Elokeinu melech HaOlam. The first yesod is baruch. You want to access bracha from the word hamshacha. You want to access the emunah that existed and exists viscerally in the neshama, to be able to be communicated and accessed in the person's soul. Because it can remain completely subconscious, it can remain completely transcendent, it can remain completely sublime. So bracha is to actually make it real, make it visceral, make it a somatic experience like it was in Bais Rishon. And that changes everything. Right? It's not anymore a concept, it's not an idea, it's real, there's an energy flow in the body. And again, this is where Avodah Zarah comes right in. Avodah Zarah knows that there's an energy flow. It just detaches the energy flow from the source. Gods, many gods. So when the Nevi'im negate Avodah Zarah, you understand what happened was in Bayis Sheni, they thought they're negating everything. They weren't negating everything. You know how sometimes you want to get rid of something toxic, so you get rid of even the good things. It's called throwing out the baby with the bathwater. They said, you know what's the best way to get rid of Avodah Zarah? If we turn God into a concept, there won't be Avodah Zarah anymore. So you got rid of God too. You got rid of the gods and you got rid of God too. Or to put it, the word God is a Greek word. The word God is a Greek word. That's how you get rid of God, by calling him God. God. G-O-D. You get rid of Avodah Zarah, you get rid of God. The Gemara Taka says in Yuma, then in the beginning of Bayis Sheni, they got rid of Yitzrud Avodah Zarah. The Anshe Knesset Sagdoila killed the Yitzrud of Avodah Zarah. They killed the Yitzrud of Avodah Zarah. They also wanted to kill the Yitzrud of Arayas. The Yitzrud for promiscuity, for immoral relationships, and then they were looking for a fresh egg in the whole Eretz Yisrael, and they couldn't find an egg. Anshe Knesset Sagdoila. That was the Sanhedrin. Anshe Knesset. Huh? The Gemara is also Yuma Daf Samachtes is the first place, and also in Sanhedrin. Yuma Samachtes, that's the main sugya. It's also in Yerushalmi. So they got rid of Yitzhak Arayas, they killed it, and there was no egg. In other words, all the roosters were just numb. The rooster, usually the roosters are lebedik, yeah? If it went to a chicken farm, that's what they're doing, Gesundte Bachrim. They're doing what Bachrim like to do. Suddenly they killed it, so there was no egg. It says Chipsu Beis Bas Yomer. They were looking for a fresh egg in Gan Eretz Yisrael. They couldn't find an egg. It was done. And they realized Kalia Alma, the world will cease to exist. In other words, the males and the females are going to go separate ways, and that's the end of civilization. There won't be any babies anymore. So they said, Yitzhak Arayis, we have to keep. They weakened it, but they didn't eliminate it. Yitzhak Avodah Zarah, they eliminated. Yitzhak the Shvichas Damim, they kept. They never dealt with that. There were 3 Yetzers that destroyed the first Bais Hamikdash. Avodah Zarah, Gilei Arayis, Shvichas Damim. Idolatry, murder, and adultery. Idolatry, they killed. Adultery, they weakened. They wanted to kill it, but they saw it's the end of the world. They killed, they weakened it, and Shvichas Damim, murder, they kept. So that didn't change in history. Unfortunately, that we know that didn't change.
By definition, because it became a much bigger sign.
Yeah. So the great test of after Bayis Sheni is not Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah is a living God. The problem is you're mixing up God with gods. Your God is schizophrenic and compartmentalized and doesn't know what he's doing and has good days and bad days and gets jealous and is fighting with other gods, like a community. Then after Bayis Sheni, the klippa is not that. The klippa becomes detachment. It's philosophy, huh?
You turn down the energy.
It's a different energy. It's a complete, it's a different, there's no relationship.
I heard Hashem the going that if you want to know how bad the difference is before they got rid of the Torah, is look at Tav's mom. You see how people running after this didn't happen before they got rid of the...
Interesting. Where does he say it?
I don't know.
The Gemara does say in Sanhedrin something interesting. That Reb Ashi was talking about Menashe. Menashe was the son of Chizkiyahu HaMelech. He was a king for 55 years, Melech Yehuda, and he was the worst king. His crimes were heinous. At the end, he did tshuva, but he killed Yeshaya Hanavi, who was his own Zayda, his own grandfather. I mean, the guy was a Rasha Merusha, and he was very into Avodah Zarah. So Menashe, Reb Ashi was talking about him because there's a Mishnah in Sanhedrin about Menashe in the Chelek Olamaba, and Reb Ashi spoke about him disparagingly. So the Gemara says that night Menashe came to him in a dream, and he told Reb Ashi. He asked Reb Ashi a question about where you make hamoitzi, which part of the bread do you cut, the dark part, the light part, the part that's burnt, and this. Reb Ashi didn't know. So Menashe said, you don't even know a simple halacha. What are you making fun of me? And then he told them that if you would have been me and you would have been in my generation, and you would see an Avodah Zarah, you would have somebody lift up your robe so that you could run fast and you shouldn't even be obstructed by your robe schlepping on the ground. You wouldn't only walk to the Avodah Zarah, you would run and you have somebody lift up your robe. That's how fast you would run. That's what he told Rabash. So the Maharal there has a whole explanation. Why did he ask him about Hamoitzi with the bread? A fascinating Maharal. He was basically explaining to him how creation happened, Hamoitzi lechem in the Aretz, and his mistake. Whatever. It's a sugi b'fnei atzma. And I don't remember all the details, but very interesting stuff. It wasn't Stam asking him about Hamoitzi to show that he was an Amaretz. Chas v'shalom Rabashi. He was trying to make a point about the mistake of Avodah Zarah. So Rabashi was considered, Rabashi is the one who gave us Talmud, he edited Talmud Bavli. So you're talking about one of the greatest sages in Jewish history. The whole Gemara comes to Rabashi, Lehavin and Rabashi. And Menashe said, if you were by me, you would have been much worse than me. And you're talking here that the editor of Talmud Bavli, you're talking about the one, Matike Hashmua, the Rambam says that the 40 generations from Moshe ends with Rabashi, the Messiah of Torah Shabbat Peh. After that, the Gemara was completed, and then it continues in a different way. But whatever is in the Gemara, nobody argues with. Afterwards, there's already different minhagim and different takanas and different kehillas, because the Gemara represented the Sanhedrin Torah Shabbat Peh that was collectively for Klal Yisrael. And actually is the one who seals it. Him, and then a little later, the Rabbanan Sforoi. So the bottom line is, and still Rabbi Ashi would have been completely overwhelmed by the Avodah Zarah. So you see that you're not talking about a regular, just a weak temptation. to lure in people who are spineless, or people who are lazy, or people who are, who are just wounded, or just looking for distractions. You're talking about Rabbi. Rabbi was a principled man, to put it mildly. So when we learn the Tanakh, and you learn about the people in Bais Rishon, you can get the impression that they were just a bunch of thugs, violent, very violent, always rebelling, always defiant. The prophets had the hardest time in Bais Rishon. Somebody once said a joke, and it's maybe not a joke. He said, there's no such a thing that Jews should listen to a Navi. Every Navi they didn't listen to. There's only one Navi they listened to, and it's Yoina. And that's because he went to the Goyim. He didn't preach to Jews. He preached to Jews, they're smarter than you. He went to the Goyim, they right away changed. And it says in Pirkei Rebbe, that's why he didn't want to go, because he thought it's going to be a kitrug on the Jewish people. That they don't listen and the Goyim listen. So I understand a Navi like Yoina was ready to defy God in order to protect the Jewish people. The Rebbe once said that's how you know what a real prophet is. We such a Navi is kaivish nevuasi chayiv misa. But the Avos Yisrael was so deep that he was ready to be chayiv misa, and he almost died, he was swallowed up. That's some was Mesidus Nefesh for the Jewish people. But Moshe shavar et haluchot. Okay, mecheni no mesifrecha to davar. Avat Yisrael shel Navi is avar mukamot. Hashayfet chalar it's liyasa mishpat. You say. Gedolach nas zarchimya. So why am I saying about Yoina? I forgot. Whoa. Oh, they were. You look at Bais Rishon. Alter Rebbe saying you have to understand something. In Bais Rishon, there was a visceral relationship with the divine, and when it's so visceral, you can't ignore it. You can't turn it into a philosophy. You can't just come shacharis and go through the minyan in a half an hour, and next, like you brush your teeth, you put on tefillin. It's real. Like back to a real relationship. Like I'm in front of your eyes. Either we work it out or we separate. Philosophy, in many ways, it makes God an object. Even if it's a big object, but it's an object. It's not alive. It's not alive. It's not alive in my bones, in my nervous system. You understand? There's no flow. By the Avodah Zarah, it was alive. It was full of mistakes and errors and flaws and idolatry, and it came with a lot of other craziness that they did over there. With all their sacrifices, etc., promiscuity, sacrifices, it came with a destruction of all moral boundaries of Avodah Zarah. It wasn't just this bowing down to a stone. It came with a lot of other stuff, especially the Moilech and the Baal and other ones. And you had an Avodah Zarah called Pa'or, where they would defecate to it. I mean, it was crazy stuff. Even that, right? Everybody's going to the bathroom on a god. Who ever heard of that? There was Avodah Zarah, Markulas. They would throw rocks on it. It was like, let's have a catch, God. Come on, let's have a catch. Here's a rock. Catch it. Throw it back. And this one was defecating on his god. The Baal Pa'or, you went to the bathroom there. In fact, the Gemara says also in Sanhedrin, Samachdal, there was a Jew who wanted to insult the Baal Pa'or, and he had to go to the bathroom. So he went into the ashram, and he went to the bathroom on the Baal Pa'or, and then he took the nose of the god of the Baal Pa'or, and it's a chabgevisht. He wiped himself with it. And he was so happy, because he was a kanoi, that he really embarrassed Avodah Zarah. And then the priest looked at him, and they said there was never a human being who worshipped this idol with the same intensity and dignity like you. When a Jew does Avodah Zarah, it's better than when a Gentile does Avodah Zarah, because he does it with a ganze Teuke von Ayid, Huh? So, yes, with Tafetkite, yes, with the jalapeno herring he does it. It's with the schmaltz herring, it's with the oil, it's with the gold Jewish grease. So they never saw it, the head, he took the nose, and he wiped himself to insult Avodah Zarah. They said, it's a new the head, a new madrege. Like, understand, it's like, he did it. And this is called respect. We would look at it and say, these people are insane. My point is that there was this visceral relationship, almost like, the Alter Rebbe says in the Torah, they took the psoilus of the body, in many ways that's like, it's like, everybody has it. Right? And this is what they were dealing with. You can't get more visceral and smelly than that. So the point is that in Bais Rishon, the whole of Avodah Zarah was taking its yinika, was taking its nurture, because the relationship with Hashem was on a completely different level. That's what you were dealing with. And when it's even hard for us to understand because we don't experience these things in our body anymore. There's like let's face it, religion is a word. The word religion didn't exist then. The word das is introduced the first time in Megillas Esther, you know that. The word religion didn't exist. The word God didn't exist. Huh? Yeah, the Sayim Shainis Mekalam. Or even the Haman introduces the word das. There should go out a das from Achashverosh to all the women that they should respect their husbands. In the Tanakh, the way they're relating to Hashem constantly, it's like we relate to a person. That's why the philosophers all have a problem. God doesn't have a hand and he doesn't have a mouth. The Rambam is busy with this because the Rambam tried to reconcile Judaism with Greek philosophy. And the worst thing is to make God, ein loy guf, ein loy dmus haguf, and he's always talking and there's emotions. It's very intense. God in the Bible is very, very intense. However you define it, however you explain it, so what the philosophers did is they removed it. So it's all a metaphor and it's all anthropomorphism, and don't take it literally, right? But it became from this idea of this detachment, which we understand why. They're like, don't reduce it to your own little box. So it comes with a lot of milas, because there's a sophistication there, but it comes with one big chesaron, and that is, it's now an idea. You believe in it, you don't believe in it. It's an it. The moment it's an it, yeah, don't call your spouse it. Okay, call it whatever you want, but not it. There's a book, I think the boy called it, right? There was a boy, his mother called him it. Talk about his trauma. His whole book is, she called him it. He wasn't she, wasn't you, it was it. It was an object, the tissue box, you call it. So I'm saying that's the issue. So the berachos was essentially this experience of Baruch Atah, first Elokeinu in Neshamas Yisrael, and then there's Melech HaOlam. So it says, "V'hine ya'idei ha'bracha mamshich bracha v'amshach li is gilu yerin seif benefesh klal Yisrael shetes chazek emunas Hashem belibam b'chinas gilu kilu raya." So what does the bracha try to achieve? Anshe Knesset Agdela wanted that even after the Bayis Rishon, there should be able to be bracha v'hamshacha, a flow, an accessing, that the gilu, the revelation of Ein Sof, should be able to be manifested in the nefesh, in the soul of Klal Yisrael. That emunas Hashem should be real, like you seeing. It doesn't mean, of course, you see it with your eyes. A person doesn't see the divine with their physical eyes. It's not a physical object. But it means it's as real, it's as visceral as something I see. So it's not up for grabs of debates, this debate, that debate. It's a relationship that is authentic. You feel it in your bones. And this is not something that philosophy grasps. In other words, philosophy will discuss concepts, and at some point they reach a wall, because you're talking about Ein Sof, you're talking about infinity. Emunah is not the negation of philosophy. As he said before, Emunah is l'mayla ben ha-seichel. Seichel to take you where it takes you, and it's a beautiful, as we said, it takes you through beautiful landscapes. But then there's a door it can't pass through. It says, Ad kana kafa aleph, I can't go anymore. A real mind also knows its limits. If it's a fake mind, it doesn't know its limit. A mind that's built on fake news, it knows everything. A mind that knows everything you can't trust. A mind that knows its limits, that's a good mind. When the mind says, this is from my perspective, this is till where I could take you, I can't touch this. So if it's an inauthentic mind, what do you do like many scientists today? You take the mysterious, the ineffable, the unfathomable, and you reduce it and you force it into your box. It's like forcing the circle into the square, or forcing the square into the circle, however you want to define it. You force it, and if it doesn't work, you start cutting it from all sides. Because it has to fit my model. But that's not an authentic mind. The authentic mind says, this is what I could see, this is what I could understand, and at this point I have to say, awe, reverence, mystery. And that's where Emunah begins, because Emunah is not a mind thing. Emunah is an experience. Emunah is experiential. It's a sixth sense that the soul possesses. And what is this sense? It's a skill of the soul that when opened and when unburdened by blockages, it allows you to experience ultimate reality. What's ultimate reality? Ultimate reality is leis machshavet tfisa. No thought can grasp it. Not even the divine soul's thought. Not even the mazel of the nefesh elikis can grasp it, because emunah is completely l'mayla min haseichel. That flow, that requires tremendous surrender, trust, surrender, because it's not a frequency that we can own, like we spoke in the last year, about letting go. Right? The foundation of breathing is that you can't hold it. Seichel likes to hold things. You write it down, you say it, you control it, you talk about it. You measure it, you give a speech, a professor gives a speech, it's always about containment, the beginning, the middle, the end, the conclusion, the proof, it's all based on structure. So it wants to do that to God too. We understand that. It loves mathematics, it loves patterns, it loves structures, it wants a beginning, a middle, and an end. People who teach how to speak, they'll tell you a speech needs a structure. You need a beginning, you need a middle, you need an end. Tell them your proof, tell them a story. Everything is with a structure. In other words, it's controlled. It's a controlled experiment. So they want God also to be that way. Ein echanami.
There's only 6 things in the Gemara. There's a statement, there's an explanation, there's a proof, there's a question, there's an answer. And the question could be...
Ein echanami, because Gemara is the way the Ein Sof is being processed through Seichel. You're right. We tried on, and so we understand. You're right. It comes in the levush of Seichel. You're saying there was no Gemara in the first Bais HaMikdash. You're right. There was no Mishnayos in the first Bais HaMikdash. There was no Gemara in the Bais HaMikdash. There was Nevuah, there was prophecy. There was prophecy. That was the conversation of Judaism. It wasn't a conversation of intellect. It was a conversation of prophecy.
But the only non-seichel thing in the Gemara is statement.
Huh? Yeah. I'm saying the main frequency of Judaism in Bais Rishon, it was Nevuah, it was prophecy. It came together, yeah. They cut the Yetzer of Avodah Zarah, and prophecy was also compromised. It was Haba Hatalia, yeah. It's like a seesaw. Zelo Umazah.
So how do we get back to not Avodah Zarah, but to the Nevuah?
להגיד עם ברכות.
So this is like small dose of experience that we're trying to get? The berachos is a small dose of experience?
So the Bayis Sheni, yeah. So the berachos really, so again, the berachos could just become, another exercise of words. But really, the whole idea of berachos, he was saying, it was like to put the person into a mindful space of silence before you're eating an apple, before you're drinking a coffee. Wait. You better take this coffee bean seriously, okay? It's not a pashta maisa. Don't just drink my coffee. It's my coffee. You're coming into a relationship. You're coming into my chamber. You're coming into my sanctuary. Don't just drink my coffee. Don't just eat my apple. I create this. This apple is real. This apple is part of a dance. There's a symphony in this apple. There's a symphony in this orange. Don't just eat a piece of chicken or a potato or a tomato or a cucumber or kale. This is a manifestation of real energy. You stop, meditate, go into a place of silence, go into a space of oneness, open yourself up to the experience. And we say, I don't have time. I don't have time. I gotta go back to work. Right? The whole bracha was, what do you mean you don't have time? This is what you're working for. What are you distracting yourself from? It's like somebody says, I don't have time to breathe, I gotta go work. Yeah. It's a different type of Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah understood that you need to be in a relationship with the forces of nature. Don't turn the world into a dead object and then try to manipulate it. Science is an experience of awe, spirituality, reverence. Science is not to reduce God into chemistry patterns. That's not science. It's to realize that chemistry is a miracle. It's a flow. Don't reduce it into these fixed patterns and they kill people's mystery and reverence. That's what the bracha is. And everything has a bracha. Wait, stop, tune in. There's a living reality here. Avodah Zarah had the Maila. There was a living reality. Everything was alive, but completely erred and flawed with all of the misconceptions and myths of Avodah Zarah. But that's the idea of Baruch Atah. There's Hashem, and here there's Elokeinu. There's the experience of the soul, and then there's Melech HaOlam. There's the experience of Malchus in the world. Sure.
So if that's the case, just leave davening on the berachos. Remove psychotism. It's no problem. Some people cannot.
Well, davening is a whole focus of this. But we're talking about throughout the entire day. Berachos is before davening and throughout the entire day. In other words, the berachos was trying to create a consciousness, or at least a sensitivity to a consciousness, to be able to access that state that existed organically in Bais Rishon, even post it. And we have to understand that this changes everything. In other words, as long as Judaism is a religion, as long as God is some entity, it remains ultimately lifeless. Even if you do believe, fine, I'm doing it and it's good, it's all good. But it's the what he says, the Gilui Erein Seif Baruch Hu Benafshe Kilu Raya. That's a whole, it's a completely different frequency, it's a completely different mind space. Like so when somebody's emotionally detached and you're connecting to a person through words, but the words don't have the depth of the experience, there's something very deadly about it. It's like I'm talking to you, you're talking to me, but there's like no flow. The hearts are not open, the hearts are closed. So it's like words become a substitute for experience. And the truth is, when we don't have experience, we do that. Words become a substitute for experience because that's what we have. We hold on to what we have. Now, this is not easy stuff because you're talking about experiencing God, you're talking about infinity, you're talking about mystery, you're talking about something that we can't wrap our brain around. So there's a pain there. That's why we learned, Recite and Shoiv, right? There's pain there because it's letting go of all definitions. Like he says here, it's a pchin of bittul, it's an experience of surrender, it's constant surrender. It's surrender to what my mind can't grasp, and yet I have my mind to use. So it's this act of Recite v'Shoiv. I'm going out of my mind, but I got to come back to my mind. I just realized I'm going out of my mind, right? I meant out, but yeah, you're going out of your mind. When you go out of your mind, you go out of your mind. Actually, that works. That's what Recite is. You're going out of your mind, you go out of your mind. Like your mind is, stop this. Could you just figure out your life? No, sorry. You can't figure out your life. Don't try. But then you have to figure out your life. You don't want to be an irresponsible. So it's Recite and Shoiv and Recite and Shoiv and Recite and Shoiv and Recite and Shoiv. But it's a very, very deep experience. It's opening yourself up to the actual flow of the Ein Sof that's flowing right now inside of you, through you. First of all, Elokeinu, which is the most intimate experience of the soul, where the whole world is not even Teufus Makim, it's higher than the angels. And then there's Melech HaOlam, which is bringing it in actually to the world and to the consciousness of the world, with this Ein Melech B'Layam, which is the person as a separate being, not the soul, which is in a complete state of bittul, where it's even higher than the angels. So there's two stages in the bracha. And we have to acknowledge both. There's Elokeinu and there's Melech HaOlam. Well, Atta is where it begins, you. And when you could only say you, Atta, when something is in front of you, right? I can't say Atta if you're somewhere else. Then I could say different words. You say who, you say he. Who is second, third person, right? In the masculine. He is in the feminine. But Atta, is you, baruch atah. Like you have to, it's lenoichach. It's you can only say atah when somebody's right here.
It's almost paradoxical. You're saying Ato, but then you're saying Okeno, which is like.
Both are true because the
They say also Hashem.
atah is very visceral. Atah is right here, right you. Like I'm talking to you. Who are you talking to? Where? What atah? But that's the whole idea of the berachos, that the atah should be baruch. It should be accessed. Again, hamavriches hagefen. It's to bring it into the person.
Direction the energy.
Of course, because it's recognizing that our consciousness does operate on so many different levels and frequencies, and they experience reality in different ways. So there's the Ata, there's Hashem, there's Elokeinu, there's Melech HaOlam, and it's acknowledging all that. There's the part of the soul that has no problem trusting, because the whole world doesn't even occupy space. If the whole world doesn't occupy space, it's not even a blue pale dot, it has no problem trusting. That's the part of the soul that's not afraid of anything. It's completely one with the source. It has clarity. It has no doubt. It has a calmness to it. It's in that zone. It's higher than Malach Michal. It doesn't fly through the world. It doesn't have to fly through the world. It's like nobody compliments God. You know, God's wings are so powerful, he can get from Australia to JFK in 3 minutes. He's the ultimate Concorde. Less than 3 minutes, 1 minute. The speed of light actually is 186,000 miles per second. So God can get from the sun to here in 8 minutes. And maybe God is the creator of light, so he can get from here to the sun in 1 minute. I can't get from here to the sun in 1 minute, but he can get here in 1 minute. And if it's a good day, God can do it in 30 seconds. And today we have spaceships who can also go pretty fast.
We already know in physics that the universe could actually expand even faster than the speed of light. So,
Right.
so if you can actually go beyond.
After the Big Bang, it expanded faster than the speed of light, no?
We give them a permission to go beyond speed
Right.
of light.
So this their head in the Maimer. It's one of the most powerful vert in this Maimer. That on the Neshamas Yisrael there's no shear. On Malach Michal you say ba'achas. On the Neshamas Yisrael there's no shear, because you're not getting the point. If you start telling me the soul is so big that it flies the speed of light, you weren't typhus. You just lost the vart. Now you're talking about Malachim, not Neshamas. That's the state of what the Neshama experiences.
Beyond any kind of boundaries that we can understand.
Yeah. But the neshama doesn't have to understand it. The neshama experiences it. The Rebbe Rashab once said, there's 3 parts in a person. He said in Yiddish, the neshama zet. The neshama zet, the neshama sees. The Kopf stellt sich vor und der Herz lebt über. The neshama sees, the brain imagines, and the heart experiences. The Neshama zet, the Kopf stellt sich vor und der Herz lebt über. That's it. Aber das ist ein gesunder Kopf. A gesunder Kopf is incoherent. A healthy mind is coherence. Coherence of soul, mind, and body. It's really soul, mind, body. Right? Because emotions means, manifestation in body. There's Taka Maimer from Rabbi Aaron Strashella, the father-in-law of the person whose wedding the Alter Rebbe said this Maimer. Parshas Chayesod, Avodas Halevi. He says, Chachma is etzem habittel, Bina is havanas habittel, and Das is the experience of bittel in the body. Chachma is etzem habittel, Chachma is bittel, koyachma. Bina is havanas habittel, it's understanding bittel, and Das is experiencing bittel in your body. Being in it. It's not etzem habittel because it's already experienced in the body, but it's the experience of it. It's integration. Das is integration. V'adam yoda is chav. It's intimacy. Bina is havanas habittel. Chachma is etzem habittel, and Das is the experience of bittel. So with the etzem habittel of the neshama, it's pnimiyus ha'olam, and the pnimiyus ha'olam is the whole olam. To say that the speed of the neshama goes through the world, you're missing the point. You say, why not? God is so big, he's so strong, he could fly through the world. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't define.
He's everywhere.
Hu mekayma shaloylam ve'ein olam mekayma. It's it's reducing to an object. Elamai, a very big object. So mitzad that space of the soul, there's a clarity, there's a oneness, there's no questions. Not because it's afraid of questions. It's not afraid of questions. You want the soul to speak philosophy, it can speak philosophy. It has a good brain. It's not afraid of questions. It doesn't need a question. Like what I said the other day from one of the sikhs of the Rebbe, he said, put him. There's a level of a relationship, was nicht, what did I say, nicht mekennes verstehen, nicht medafes verstehen, nicht mevilles verstehen. First of all, you can't understand it. In other words, seichel doesn't have the capacity. It measures things. It has to measure things. That's its job. It's a cup. A cup has 9 ounces, 11 ounces, a gallon. It measures things. That's what it does. Logic is a way of processing reality. It's an amazing way, but it's a way. It's a pattern. There's something called the laws of logic. And therefore it's limited. Even if it's brilliant, it's limited. It's brilliant, but it's limited. And even the highest seichel, which is brilliant beyond what we even understand what's brilliant, it's still limited. It's a creation. So it can't understand it. But now you may feel bad. Oh, but I want to understand it. He says you don't need to understand it. It's not going to help you. Understanding it won't contribute to the relationship. It's in the world of seichel, it's very valuable. But in terms of the essential relationship, you don't need to. It's not like you're missing something.
But if you're not striving for it, it's like ignorance.
You're striving for it in the world of seichel. But then there's something that's deeper than that. It's like the teacher who told Rothschild, if I would be Rothschild, if I would be you, I would be richer than you because I wouldn't quit my teaching job.
Side income.
A side income, yeah. So he would have $10 billion, but then he would make another $20 an hour from what he's doing. You understand? That's seichel legabe emunah. You want to teach, fine, gesundheit, I don't mind. You're a good teacher, you continue teaching even if you have Rothschild's money. Maybe it's actually better, you won't need the money, you'll do a good job. You'll be able to be focused. But the point is, that's seichel legabe emunah. If I got no job, then teaching is amazing. At least something I'll have. I'm talking in terms of money. I'm not talking in terms of quality. Teaching is more important than what Rothschild does. I'm talking in terms of the cash on the table, cash in the bank. So if there's not seichel, wow, it's a nice salary. Once you touch that, you can't understand it. You don't need to understand it. It's like adding, a nickel to the. You won the lottery for $360 million, and I'll give you a nickel. Fine. Don't give me a nickel, give me a nickel. It's nicht teufels makim. It's not going to add anything to the relationship. I'm going to give you again my examples for marriage because they work, okay? If somebody has a miserable marriage, you can understand your wife and your husband from today till tomorrow. If it helfen auf teute bankes, it helfen kaduchas, like your grandmother would say. A kadachas. You know what a kadachas is? A hot fever. As much as a hot fever helps you. And if you have a good marriage, understanding her and not understanding her is the zelbezach, nish negeya. And the same is true with your children. And by the way, the same is true with yourself. And the same is true with God. The same is true with all relationships. If there's no real relationship, you can understand me, fine, you'll make spreadsheets on your wife. For 40 years, people make spreadsheets. Analyze, dissect. You have her everything. You know her mother and her grandmother and her great-grandmother, and you understand the psychoanalysis of every trauma and insecurity in the world, and she knows you. How much is that going to help you? Brilliant genius. Take your spreadsheets, tear it up, throw it out, okay? Sit down on the floor, look into somebody's eyes, and be quiet. And just allow yourself to cry for a few hours or months. You'll know much more, because you're not knowing. You understand what I'm saying? Seichel is a beautiful thing. If you're in that work, if you have to figure out, some cure, some medicine, whatever it is, of course we have to use our intellect. Intellect is a divine gift, and the divine flows through it. It flows through it in its structure. But to reduce reality to that, so that's what he said. You can't understand it. You don't need to understand it. And then the last point was you don't want to understand it. You don't even want to understand it. You understand?
You realize that it's less than what you have.
Exactly. Because why do you want something? Because it's going to give something to you. By understanding it, you're just going to cheapen it. It's a cheap shot. You're minimizing it. You're depriving yourself from the relationship. Why should you even want it? You're depriving yourself from the experience. It's like a chassan under the chuppah who says, wait, before I'm a kaddisher, I need to take a picture. He takes a selfie from the kiddushin. Huh? It's going to happen. Wait. Okay, here's the ring. Selfie. And you'll be married as a picture. You can also hang up a picture of the couple, and that's the marriage. It's a picture. In other words, what's the idea? You don't want it because it's taking you away from it. It's not going to give you what the emunah is going to give you. Emunah is the experience. This itself is then. I said, the neshama zet, the cup stellt sich vor. That's why he said the cup stellt sich vor. The brain is an important thing. Because when the brain understands this, then it's doing its job.
Is that what, the Bina Yisera and women, is that, can it be connected to this? A man get twin golf in the world of intellect?
Not anymore, but it used to be that way, yeah. Today the men are as emotional wrecks as anybody else, trust me. Men forgot what it means to be a man. We are a man. Bina Yisera Nitna B'isha there's a bina there, yeah. You're married, you should know. You have to ask questions. Come up with a plan, present it to your wife. She'll look at it and she'll say, I don't know what shiurim you're going to, but figure it out, because this is not going to work. You know, men come up with chalamoya trips and ideas for the family and where they're moving and how they're making money, and the wife looks and like, and how we going to have dinner? Okay, next. Boom. Oh, I didn't think about dinner. Oh, people have to eat. Okay. That's, in other words, that's more the grounding idea, right? The grounding it, you know, bringing it into details, the manifestation of it. Okay, let's just finish this paragraph. But there's something that precedes the bracha. What precedes the blessing and the flow of this revelation is the one who's making the bracha, the mevarech. He's the one doing it. Because every mitzvah is a vessel for the flow of the light of infinity mamish, and through them he's accessing Ein Sof Lamata. In other words, it's the bracha coming before the mitzvah that he's going to do, which has the channel, the keli, to access the Ein Sof. And that's why right after that you say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, God, our God, the King of the universe, the consciousness of the universe, who sanctified us with his mitzvahs. Asher miloshen daha. The word asher means also because. It's giving a reason. Since he sanctified us with his mitzvahs, the word mitzvah in Hebrew means connection, attachment. Tzavsa mitzvah means a link, an attachment. So since he sanctified us with his mitzvahs, meaning he connected us to the Ein Sof, which is the source of all the mitzvahs, therefore this bracha can access the gilui of the Ein Sof. In other words, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Why do I even think I could do that? The answer is asher. There's a reason. Kiddishanu from the word kedushan, also from the word kiddushin. It says in Tanya, he betrothed us. There's a relationship. B'mitzvah through the mitzvah. In other words, the mitzvah is a connection with the source of the mitzvah, with the Ein Sof, and every mitzvah is a keli, is a channel for the actual flow of Ein Sof. So a mitzvah, when there's a bracha on a mitzvah, it's not a small thing. We have to understand that the mitzvah is an actual keli for the Ein Sof to come into the person's life. And every mitzvah is a channel, it accesses it. The question is how refined the person's eyes and soul is to be able to experience it. But every mitzvah is a keli for that safsa v'chibur. It's a real connection, it's a real relationship that happens on a level that is even beyond the consciousness of the person. So therefore you can make this bracha. Because it's going to be Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. This is what the mitzvah is going to accomplish. The bracha is to be able to help the person open themselves up to the experience of it. But the reason I could say it is because Hashem Kedishanu b'mitzvaysav. There's Taka Kedishanu through this mitzvah. So before the bracha, there's the one making the bracha, who is the one doing the mitzvah. And it's only because he or she is making this bracha, because they're doing this mitzvah, which is actually going to access the Ein Sof, that they can make the blessing. I don't just make the blessing in a vacuum. That's what he says. Yeshlanu koyach lahamshel gilui Ein Sof baruch hu b'bracha zu. Everybody have a beautiful day and a blessed day. Tomorrow morning we have a women's class, 9:30. Bais Hashem will continue the Maimer Thursday morning, 7:45. B'yom Chamishi. אתה יכול לשמוע על האתר אם אתה רוצה. זה יפה שאתה פה, תודה שהגעת. Ist verstanden? The bracha is to be able to, they wanted to be the gilui.
So, Rabbi, if we lost the visceral experience of Hashem by Millenia and substituted with the logic of a Gemara to basically develop the healthy seichel and everything, so aren't we basically on the wrong path if we don't restore the nevuah in a certain way that it's
You're right. That's why.
dead?
You're right. That's why. That's the whole function of Pnimiyus HaTorah. You're right. The whole function of Pnimiyus HaTorah is to get that the seichel of Judaism shouldn't become a barrier and an obstruction, but a channel.
Because it becomes a keli in itself.
It needs to become exactly. It should be a channel.
And it's
Not an end.
itself.
Not an end. It shouldn't
Not
be
the means to achieve that.
right. It could become an end in and of itself. It becomes an intellectual experience completely, and sometimes a very lifeless one.
Oh no, it's actually enjoyable.
Enjoyable from an intellectual perspective, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm saying a barrier in terms of the full-fledged experience with that which is beyond seichel. Leis machshava tfisa.
If we don't develop the muscle of experience, of muscle,
Yes,
muscle of
yes,
the,
it's a muscle.
so you cannot.
You're right.
Experience it.
Emotions are muscles, experience are
It's
muscles.
a muscle, right? They used to have a schools of Nevi'im.
That's what schools of prophecy. Yeah? It was a school of prophecy.
Actually, it's interesting because my kids, one of Yosef, he lost to Nevi'im, so Nevi'im, and the Gemara, which should put inside. I mean,
Yeah.
he used to be learning
The,
Gemara.
re-
day
the,
and
re-
night.
the reason he loves Nevi'im and Ksuvim is because you feel over there a very visceral relationship with God,
Right,
with
and
reality.
Something
Yeah.
that resonates with the
Yeah,
neshama.
yeah. It was real. It was like,
And we dafka don't learn it. Like in our curriculum, dafka not this.
yeah, yeah. That's the Bais Rishon. That's what he says in Bais Rishon. There was Gilui Ein Sof Benafsham. There was a visceral manifestation of divinity.
But
It was like alive.
can it,
Again, you loved it or you hated it, but you were with it.
right.
And said, I love you or I hate you, in my life or out of my life, but you're there.
You can connect to it.
You could connect, yeah.
All right. In either way, plus or minus, but you're there.
And you see, that's how the prophets spoke. They were very blunt. They were extremely blunt.
Yeah.
They didn't camouflage it in sophisticated ideas.
My wife says that about me all the time.
Yeah, you read Nevi'im and Ksuvim. It's like it's intense. It's intense. It's very intense. It's electricity, nuclear energy. Yeah. They didn't camouflage anything. It was like life and death. Like everything was. They faced it head on, like you faced life head on. You didn't turn it into an idea. Don't turn the tree into an idea on me, okay? I'm not an idea, and God, I'm not an idea. Don't turn me into a mathematical equation. I'm not one of your mathematical equations. But you have to be alive for that. You have to be open. If I'm completely insecure, it's very hard. Because seichel could be such a defense mechanism. You relate to things through like a shliach. Like you're always sending a message. It's like talking only on WhatsApp. You never talk to people. It's like a WhatsApp. You can get away with things. A guy told me he's breaking up his shidduch. So I said, how did you do it? He said he sent her a WhatsApp. I said, how many times did you date? A lot of times I said, you proposed in person and you're going to break up on a WhatsApp? That's not nice. Give the person dignity and sit down, look at them and say, I can't. I'll send you on a WhatsApp, it's not fair.
In person, dating, you want to continue something. I'm okay to see you. I'm not going to see you ever again.
Maybe not fair, maybe it's selfish, maybe it's not fair.
It's selfish. And it's on both sides. It's on both sides that way. Nobody feels comfortable.
Shidduchim
You
resume
have to
is
deal
the
with you
worst.
right there.
It's the worst.
If he dated on WhatsApp, I agree.
So it's all about you. Why is it?
Because the person you have built a relationship with, even if it's a temporary. Well, you announced that you're getting married. It's something, no? No, I'm talking about they went out or they got engaged. I said, what am I? You spent hours and hours and hours. Yeah, be a man. Face the person. You also won't feel good afterwards. You're gonna for years you'll feel like. Ugh. Yeah. So what happens is when we intellectualize things, like we create this emotional barrier, like sending a messenger, like I'm sending a WhatsApp. Like don't turn me into a mind thing. Sometimes you have couples in therapy, marriage therapy. One is using the mind, one is using the heart, and it's a disaster. It's like one person is crying and sobbing about the break, the other person is, yeah, but I have a good question. I think they're learning like a Gemara, they're going to prove it through Tosfos. And it's just like you have to feel the other person. The hub in the hearts. Huh?
No, he's asking that if the mind is bigger than our desire. I said no.
Can be.
The mind can become a very big Avodah Zarah, but the biggest Avodah Zarah of the mind is that it turns God into an object. It's a different type. It's an Avodah Zarah of coldness. It's an Avodah Zarah of detachment. It's like the Germans, the sophisticated, brilliant people who had it figured out.
So full of themselves.
Huh?
So full of
It's a different type of Avodah Zarah. It's Avodah Zarah that's passionless. It's like a detachment of reality. It's like you're in a bullet. You're in a cloistered. You're locked up in this emotional closet, and you relate to everything through cold intellect. It's a different type of Avodah Zarah. It's very lethal. It's very lethal because it could look very beautiful. Yefes, miloshen yafe. It's very cultural, but it's very poisonous. It's like when the writers in the New York Times write about Israel and Hamas and Iran. Everything is the same. Everybody is the same. You understand? Iran, Israel, it's all the same. Like Hitler, Churchill, everybody is the same. They're all the same. They're just good people with misunderstandings. There's no, you understand? There's no evil. There's no good. Huh? Very, very sophisticated, but very dangerous. Lethal people.
Yafis has to live ultimately in the oil of Hashem.
Yafusay shall yefes ba'alei shem. Yafta lekim yefes v'yishkem ba'alei shem. Yefes is beautiful when it's connected to shame. Shame means a name. Rav Hirsch writes that shame is a name. There's a name, there's an identity. This is good, this is evil. Yefes is just, it's beautiful.
But he has to
Right.
be. So
The Greek, what is it? By the Greeks, if it was aesthetical, it was holy. By the Jews, if it was holy, it was aesthetical. It's a different idea. I just have to make a call. 1 second. Hatzlacha Rabbi.